6:03.
Ms. Joy Beers, present. Mr. Richard Belt. Here. Ms. Barbara Bowes. Here. Mr. Nathan Kohler.
Present.
Mr. Jeremy Glausch.
Here.
Mr. Brian Shaner.
Here.
Mrs. Carrie Sittler. Here. Ms. Ava Walker. Here. Mr. Walter Sponsor. Thank you.
Is this on? Okay, great. So today we're primarily the board wanting to hear from participants in the audience. This is more of a listening session. We're kind of curious where people would like to see the district go, what things you would like to be improved, or maybe a special program that we would introduce. Janine did put these slips out there, so whoever wishes to speak, we appreciate that you fill out a slip just so we can keep track of people's names. Makes it easier for Janine to do the meeting minutes. We'll wait a couple of minutes here while people do that.
Do you want them ahead of time?
What's that?
Do you want it now?
Yeah, yes, please. Okay. So Jack's been emailing the board about having a budgetary meeting while we're waiting for people to fill out slips. And he's been proposing March 7th as a date to have that meeting to talk about the budget. Does that work for board members? I believe it's a Monday. Mondays seem to be a good intersection for our group.
This would be the first. Ed is now putting together. We have met, Ed and I have met with all the different buildings. We've gathered all their information on what they need for their buildings. We have sat with them and discussed staffing, what they need in staffing. So Ed is putting the final touches on that first brush, as they say. But again, the governor came out with his budget. If you read the Times News tonight, we're expecting to get almost $1.9 million. Don't bank on it because it hasn't gone to the lawmakers yet, and it always goes back and forth there. But that would be a very, very welcome addition to our coffers. But we'll see what comes out of that. But it is time to, as I said before, we have to pass a budget as a district by May 30th. 30 days prior, it has to be on display. So we would like to get that process because there's a lot of fine tuning in the meantime. So March, we're looking at a Monday, is mostly convenient, I guess. March 7th, between our other meetings, time, up to you. We're available. So if we can get you on the 7th, that would be great. You tell us what time.
Well, I think we should ask the community, would 7 be better for them than 6? A lot of people work till 6 o'clock, so
Doesn't matter to us.
maybe, doesn't matter to me either, but maybe we can get some input from the community on what would work best.
Well, do we hear any no's for 7 o'clock? That would be better than 6. Okay, 7 o'clock, March 7th.
Okay. Jack, do you want to talk about anything else before we get started? Pfeiffer? Do you wish to speak?
I don't know who it goes to. I don't come to these meetings very often, but there's been a lot of talk in the community about our website, the school's website, and how it could be updated. And like to get to the 9th grade courses today, I went in there to look for that, and it's still listed as 21, 22 instead of next year's courses. Like simple little things like that, like it could be updated. And it would be nice if like the middle school does a daily bulletin that they put out every day. They update it daily, if not weekly, but like the elementary school doesn't. Like as a parent who has kids in all the schools, it would be nice if it was more streamlined and was easier to access documents, files, like I said, trying to find the 9th grade enrollment. And course selection, it wasn't even named that, it was named something silly. I think I wrote it down. Program of studies. I mean, like, nothing about that says this is where you would pick, this is the button, this is the document that you need for 9th grade enrollment. Like, just silly stuff like that. But I know people will say, oh, go to the website, and then we all kind of joke about the fact that nobody can find anything on the website. So it seems like a silly thing, but I just thought I'd bring it up to the board because maybe you guys have something to do with that.
No, I don't think it's silly. I myself have struggled with it. I think the website is perhaps a little archaic, or maybe was built for a different purpose and then was repurposed, and it is difficult to navigate. It's a good suggestion.
I've been saying that for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think maybe we should talk to, who manages our website right now? Is it all in Eugene?
Multiple people.
Multiple people?
Yes, secretaries will update their buildings. I'll do some updating with school district stuff. Mrs. Bolsky will do updating. It's kind of a collaborative.
Yeah. Do you think there's any value in having, was our website originally built outside the district by like a web designer? Or is that before your time?
I believe it was just a couple years ago when Blackboard migrated into a new program, I'll say. And then that migration was done by the web designers. So that information would have been carried over somehow. I mean, that was before my time, but I know where I was at the time, I think a lot of school districts were going through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, there might be information in there that we just moved over but never touched upon.
I'd like to say one thing. When you want to speak, could you please come to the microphone for the sake of the live stream? Because otherwise people on the live stream can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and also a board member's on the phone, so she can't probably hear as well.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, speaking of someone who did the last meeting, it was very challenging to hear.
Okay, I think it's a good suggestion. I think we'll work on that one. Dave Bradley.
All right, I truncate this to make it quicker and easier, but I sent the board this public address, I guess we'll call it, to the board, and a copy of the book that I'm referencing. I'm giving you the chart that was created from the state documents. There's some of them over there if anybody in the audience wants to have them. Give them along if you don't mind. Thank you. And then also, if you don't have one already, this is the performance audit that was provided by the Auditor General, so we can have a copy here to reference it. All right, with that being said, in business, we evaluate performance on a regular basis. Common metrics of quality and efficiency. Performance is measured and challenges are made to ensure these results are accomplished. And when you make those changes, you check them. Management of a school has an additional responsibility. The protection of students and the need to save the community are the two biggest. Let's start with protect the students. Much of the Much of this presentation, as I said, was taken directly from the state. The references and supporting documents were provided to the board, the press, and the public. Act 13 of 2020, signed into law by Governor Wolf in March of 2020, and it revised that Act 82 of Educator Effectiveness Process used to evaluate professional employees in pre-K to 12th grade education. That's directly from the website. I witnessed the failure of this government to provide oversight in this regard, and the results of the blind trust rubber stampers on the performance of our students. I have a chart. All right, so then rather than read this, we're just going to cut to the chase. The state has several levels of performance. The first deficiency would be the CSI rating, and below that is this ATSI. And regrettably, the Heighton is on the ATSI list with the likes of Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Allentown, Coatesville, and Hazleton. This is not the student's fault. This is a management issue. This is the board's issue. These poor results were continuously discounted and excused. Larry Stern himself used old excuses that are not valid in my opinion, so this board needs to provide oversight to ensure we get these results that we're looking for. The best way is to start with the statistics and a measurement method, like any sport, publish the results, giving our team the pride and the results that they earn. By the simple understanding that poor performance hurts our children's future, I believe we can all see the need for a measured performance. Luckily, for the most part, our state system and funding our state system of funding of education follows the students. So we as a community can allocate these tax dollars where we find that they are needed for success in your budget process. And it's the board's local control. You look at this chart over 5 years, it's scary. All right, part 2. Let's review this, save the community. The government is a responsibility of the public they serve to ensure that every dollar collected and every dollar spent is done with compliance to the law and efficiently. It's the government's responsibility to be lawfully transparent so people can verify the truth and ensure fraud is not occurring. The propensity to fraud in all government organizations is high. Therefore, the responsibility falls to the people to provide the oversight and take actions to prevent the risk of fraud. It's our job. And to quote Mark Marini, the author of the Forensic Audit, which is a standard textbook for anyone in management, occupational fraud differs from other crimes because the victim does not know their loss until the scheme is discovered. Followed in this book also is the FBI defines fraud as the intentional perversion of the truth that causes another person or other entity relying on the non-truth to give up something of value. It's our taxes, our value, our education of our students. How many people in this room remember this old line? The cost to renovate is the same as the cost to build. It was totally yes in my book. And it was corroborated by the Auditor General as less than accurate and verifiable as less than accurate. But that's past. You don't need to be a PhD forensic auditor to see what happens. And this board can call in for help. Several in the community did, and we called in the Auditor General. However, the Auditor General doesn't have an enforcement authority. The Auditor General showed this board when I was on it how to enforce what they found. And the board authorized a forensic audit. The fact that the forensic audit was not performed is an issue. Since Wayne, Larry, Rita, and Steve are no longer able to block I highly suggest that we perform it. This government should focus on 3 areas. The multi-purpose stadium, as outlined in the Auditor General's report, the National Education Foundation, as outlined in the Auditor General's report, that this board, I agree, it's different people at the time, that this board improperly acted and failed to review contracts. Specifically, the NEF agreements had the community paying millions of dollars in payment for services not rendered. Additionally, the payments of stipends were made to the out of the district educational funds. District employees were paid in the form of these stipends. These stipends were accepted, yet the records and testimony of the NEF showed that they failed to properly implement the very program that was provided to these students, for which the employees were given and paid extra to implement. And finally, the third one is the superintendent's contract. We have documents signed by Larry Stern himself, and on its face appears to have shown a non-truth. And the funds were taken from this public and given out based upon the non-truth. The document contradicts the lawful authority of the board, and yet Larry still signed it. And the government provided the oversight to have those documents sent to the state of Pennsylvania. The paperwork contradicts the board's vote, and even the vote that was taken apparently failed to be in lawful compliance. When Larry Stern, Wayne Wentz, Rita Spinelli, Steve Holland, and Nathan Fuller all failed to follow the law, they disgraced themselves by failing to honor their oath, and the community suffered a financial loss. Once this audit is completed, we need a copy of it so we can review how to hold it accountable, which starts with this board. The people in the community were the victims. The new moral majority board needs to properly investigate so that we can restore faith in this system. Politicians that take actions outside of their legal authority should be held accountable. Thus protect the students by properly measuring and evaluating staff performance, and save the community by removing the pressure, opportunity, rationalization, and arrogance drivers for the people that commit fraud as outlined in the book, The Managers. Can you please add to your agenda to execute the forensic audit that was originally approved by the board that was never done? Thank you.
First, Jack, are you familiar with these performance ratings that Dave's talking about, the CSI and the ATSI?
They just came out, I think. Yeah. That is the ratings for performance for individual employees.
Oh, that's for employees, that's not for students?
Which one? Where are they?
Yeah, those are.
Oh, okay, yes, they are the,
Jack, turn on your mic for the live stream.
so they are the ratings for the tests, right?
This chart that he handed out is PSSA data, it's like. Right, going back to 2015, but I'm not sure this is from the PBOS model, so I'm not sure where he pulled these numbers from. The ATSI that he's talking about is the targeted assistance plan that the high school was placed on back in 2000 based on data from actually 17, 18.
The PSSA is the test.
It was for subgroups, correct, and that's why we have that plan in place now. Part of that plan is we've got CDT testing, which we've started to implement with all levels. Elementary has been CDT testing, middle school has been CDT testing, and high school has started CDT testing in English in all the testable subject areas. Algebra 1, bio is the only one at this point not CDT testing because those scores always land actually above proficient in advanced, Mr. Bradley, just so you're aware of that in biology. Another part of that has been the school climate survey that went out last year to the community last spring. The high school originally started with that, and then all levels got that school community survey to look at social and emotional learning and those components and how to improve the community from that aspect. With that, the plan was put in place this year for the training that we've been doing with the IU. As you know, last week we had Part 3, trauma-free, at all levels. That was all written into the ATSI plan, even though it was strictly a targeted high school plan. We've made it a district plan because there's always ways to make improvements. And that's where we're at with that. In the spring, we'll do another school community survey. We'll go out to all levels, K to 12. We'll look at that data from last year to this year and look at growth and improvements of that. And I just wanted to, if I could, I have the Jenny, no, actually she must have walked out. She left. Jenny did mention the website. We know that the website is a work in progress. As Janine said, and for years it's been getting different updates. Initially it was taken over, you said, by Blackbird, and we redid that several years ago. Things did just legitimately transfer over. Jenny was looking for the 9th grade program and study course selection. That has not been posted because those meetings were supposed to be on Friday, but because of the large amount of absence of the snow makeup day, the meetings did not happen with ninth grade, and they will not happen until tomorrow. So half the class will come in tomorrow and on Wednesday, and then all the course of study programs, the actual course of study program, which was just recently approved at the last board meeting, will go live on the website, and course selection sheets will be due back in the next 2 weeks. And those can be found on the announcements as well daily. As she mentioned, the notebook that is the bulletin that the middle school gets, that is part of Power School. So if you have a student at any level K to 12, you do get a daily bulletin, and that's up to the buildings of what they put in that. The high school, of course, has that daily bulletin every day, and that can be found in their Power School apps on a daily basis. So
I think it's commendable because you're, like you said, to go on that needs improvement, it targets certain groups that did make the cut, as they say. However, you're looking at all groups, because there could be kids in those groups that made the cut,
correct.
but still need help. So it's commendable that you're looking at the whole population to deliver these improvements throughout your entire building.
Jack, what I think the board would like to see is maybe could you get together with the principals and do like a mini presentation to the board, maybe not a week from today, but maybe, but maybe in April, put together these test scores and kind of explain this to the board, talk to us
So
about.
unfortunately, I just want, so since COVID,
Our scores just came out, right?
So, correct, so there was a window with COVID. So COVID kind of skewed a lot of things with PSSAs and Keystone. So 2019, 2020, obviously, scores did not happen because of COVID. So at that time, PSSAs and Keystones were put at a freeze. Last year as well, there were pockets of it. Our Keystones, our students, just because of the block schedule, so Bio, Algebra 1, and Lit just took a first round of Keystones in January, so those scores actually aren't even coming in yet at this point, and then we'll take a second round for the second semester students at the end of the year. The scores from last year, actually they just got this December and were just recently released. There's been a lag on that, and I know that's a big discussion at the state level on releasing those scores, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just see what the most recent data is.
And you can go with a PBOS. We can do a PBOS demonstration easily. I mean, I think Mr. Paxton's doing that, but.
Yeah, just so that the board knows, so for example, when a community member comes and they talk about these things and they have a graph, let's just have the board have this data so that we can understand and maybe make decisions if we need to based on that data.
But the data is already published on the Pennsylvania Department of Education site, and it shows that our district is suffering from a variety of areas, specifically the fact that our students with disabilities are not being educated properly, and the fact that they are falling below not only the standard, but the CSI level, and below that is this advanced
I don't disagree.
it's called the Advanced Target Support and Improvement Performance. They know we have issues. We need to make changes and then evaluate those changes to make sure that they're happening. When you see a 5-year trend that really doesn't show improvements or changes, and actually a negative trend, the board has to take issue.
Dave, I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying that
I
the
agree.
board wants to see more data
Correct.
than just what you presented here. We want to get a bigger picture and have it all presented, not just a single chart, but maybe like 10 charts,
Agreed.
and then we can make decisions.
And I sent the Excel spreadsheets to the entire board that all this data was pulled from. And yes, these are just 2 areas where it shows, on average, that our students are not scoring above the basic level, which is what the requirement is for a school district.
Great, thanks. And
Go on.
then the other issue is the forensic audit, and I know that this has come up and it's been debated, and Barb, where have we left this, the forensic audit? I know that you and I were talking about it, and I know that it came up in the finance meeting and da-da-da.
Well, it did pass in a motion, was it 2019? I think,
Could be.
from memory. However, because it was when we hired, it must have been July of 2019, I think. Might have been 2020 because it's when we hired Barbicane.
Okay.
However, I believe the cost was $325 per hour for a forensic audit, and it never got done. They were hired to do it, I questioned at some point, and I was told, well, it was partially done while they did the basic audit. However, we never saw any information on that.
Partially done?
Well, looked at when they were going through the basic stuff to do the yearly audit, so they were looking at that as well. Barbicane was the auditor that found the issue with the MEF contracts. The only reason that was found is because MEF was a QZAP contract, so it was a federally funded program. And when there was a write-off for, I think it was 1.7 or 1.8 million, because we had to continue that program for 5 years. And we stopped it because we went to STEAM, I think it was, instead of STEM. That's why it was found. That's why it wasn't found in previous audits, because there was no write-off. And basically, that's what they're looking at in the yearly audit, is to make sure that we're spending our grants properly from the state and from the federal government. That's my understanding of it. I mean, they look at other things, but that's their main focus.
So $325 an hour isn't really the type of bid I would like to see. I mean, can we?
I could be wrong on that, but I think
That's not my
that's what
point.
it
My point
was.
is, we don't know how many hours.
Right, and that's,
So, can we talk to Barbicane and get like a real proposal from them to do this?
I think it was in the RFP that was put out. And if you remember, we had nobody reply to it, except you contacted people at the time. You called, and that's why Barbicane responded to the RFP. And do you know how many more years are left in the Barbicane contract?
I think this is the last year.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was this or next year. I haven't had time to look it up,
I'd have
so.
to go back and look. I think this is the last year. This was a
Okay.
3-year,
Yeah, it was a 3-year. I just don't remember.
they had a year before I got here, so.
Does it terminate in June, the end of the school year?
Yeah.
Then we should be doing another RFP for auditor.
I apologize, I wasn't hanging around here in 2019, but why was something voted on and approved by the board and then not completed?
It happened several times.
All the time.
Because a forensic audit is geared towards looking for fraud, specifically,
It was voted
fraud.
on and approved by the board.
Well,
Yep, to
that was
find
the year
fraud.
we were gonna be $3 million short on the budget because of healthcare costs, and the healthcare cost overruns were only actually $200,000.
And additionally, besides finding the NEF money, we also found from doing a more professional audit, by having the board oversee it, we also found all the monies that weren't billed to other school districts, just like they had issues with at the forensic audit up at Jim Thorpe, and we also found other issues that needed to be reviewed. I think it was just blocked by the existing immoral majority board, and they dropped the ball for the benefit of the community. It should be done.
Thanks, Dave. So, Brian, just to answer your question, there were many motions that were passed and were not carried out. And there's various reasons for that, but I mean, it came back to, the superintendent didn't prioritize that. He was working on other projects. And I know when it came to this forensic audit that, I don't know if it was myself or someone else, Patty was here at the time, she was our business manager, and she told me she was like collecting documents and she was getting it together, and then boom, pretty soon she was resigning, and so then like all that slipped through the cracks with Patty leaving and Ed coming on board, and it didn't get executed. I mean, Ed, did you know when you were hired that there was this motion for forensic audit? So Ed wasn't even aware to even know that he should have been working on it when he took over from Patty.
The motion for the forensic audit was the year before Patty resigned. Because I remember specifically, it was the first year we ran, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I know it was before she left, but then like she resigned somewhere in that period of time.
Well, she didn't resign until 2020, September, I believe.
Right, so.
But anyway, I did want to correct one of Dave's statements. The NEF contracts were not ever given to the board to approve.
but it's still the board's responsibility to oversee it. The fact that they turned a blind eye, gave the blind trust, and rubber stamped what that's the problem.
To make these points.
But that's the point. The board, you nine, have this responsibility to make sure these people are protected. Their kids are protected, the kids get a good education, and the money is collected and dispersed.
And can,
So back
And it's obvious that that's not being done. You're here at a workshop meeting to say, let's see how we're gonna get them done. The first thing to do is get the facts. More data is a good thing.
Yeah.
Collecting the forensic audit is a good thing. You're gonna collect data related to fraud. You could do a Benford law test and instantly isolate some of the issues.
Please let me speak. So Ed, you're saying that we're going to need to do an RFP anyways for auditor, and we can do an RFP that dovetails with the forensic audit as well. Yes, so could you and Jack work on that?
the other thing you have to consider, for what years do you want that forensic audit? Because the more years you cover, the more it's gonna cost.
You could just isolate it down to a couple accounts to find out what's going on. And you could pick the ones that are easiest to defraud within a school district, and then just focus on those, which makes it very inefficient. And with that efficiency, you can actually allow your current auditor to do it. You have that authority, you've already had the approval, and it's part of the audit process that we avoid when we decide to limit our audits to only doing certain things, which is why the Auditor General found so many more things that our audit did not find for years. Because we do a basic audit, not a full audit of our books.
I think we need our current auditor to explain how that could work. They seem to do a good job, so I think we should get some information on them on how that would work.
Okay.
You can actually just tell them to do it, and they will, because they already have most of the data. They just got to run the tests that I found with the standard inside that book. I'll leave you my copy.
That's okay. I'm going to move on because I don't want this meeting to get caught up on too many singular items. Laurel Zimmerman.
Hello, I'm Laurel Zimmerman. I live in the community. I have students who attend the Hayden Area School District, and I'm also a staff member. I'm here to speak to you in regards to the high school auditorium. I have just become the drama department advisor, and it has come to my attention that our light board does not work at the high school auditorium. It does not function. I cannot use it for shows. We can't use it for band concerts. We can't use it for chorus concerts. It can be used for any purpose that you would be using the auditorium for. I do believe that this is a detriment to us because we could be renting out the facility in addition to our students using it. So we're losing out in that respect. Also, on another point, we have lapel microphones that we use for our show. We're getting ready to do a performance, and we just checked all of the microphones, changed all the batteries, and not one single microphone works. So my students are working really hard to put on a wonderful show. We're trying to get people to come back into the school district and participate in all kinds of extracurricular activities. And unfortunately, we're not able to do what we would really like to do because the opportunities have been taken care of, unfortunately. That's all I have on that. I did have another point I'd like to bring up as well. As Mr. Bradley was speaking, I'm thinking about test scores and things, and as a staff member, I take that personally. I really try to do my very best all the time. I'm always looking out for my students. I teach 3rd grade, so we're the first level that takes the PSSAs, and I work really hard to do what I can for my students. But it's not always easy to do in light of things like staff shortages. There's no substitutes. People don't want to come to our district because of things that they've heard with our boards in the past. And honestly, they don't pay very well, so they'd rather go somewhere else. We've lost a lot of staff members because they're going to other places. Some of them are even going to different careers because honestly they're fed up. And I just wanted to make you aware that the staff members are really trying to do the best that they can. That's all.
Some of these items are quite easy. Jack, could you talk to Kyle about the issues with the
Yeah,
auditorium
well,
equipment?
did you make this known to anybody?
I
Follow
messaged
up.
Kyle, he's aware of it, but
Sue, do you know, I mean,
Light board's been an issue since I've been there. It's many thousands to get that light board fixed, so that's something that we've brought up over the course of years. Microphones, you're talking about the wireless mics. Again, I believe I'm looking at Joy and I think Gail, you're sitting here. You were at our National Honor Society. I put new batteries in fresh in the middle of the night, so that's, we need to order new microphones. I guess if the batteries aren't holding the charge, we're putting in new batteries into the mics. If they're not holding, I'm not exactly sure. Laura, are you talking about the wireless ones, or you just talking about the
all of them,
the headset
wireless,
ones?
the lapel mics, the handheld,
Yeah,
none of them really work.
That stuff I want a bit aware
How
of.
old is the system?
I don't know.
Probably with the school, yes.
I'm guessing back to states back to '93.
So you're saying this has been an ongoing issue for years?
The high school auditorium has been an ongoing issue for years. It's still.
And has not been addressed? Okay.
So Jack, can you follow up with Kyle on that? I'm hoping that's an easy fix.
that's you and I sit with them.
I don't think the company who sold the light board is
Still in
even
service.
in service.
Yeah.
The company is.
I think it'll be a light board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll sit with Kyle and we'll sit with Ed to
Is that
see what
something
we
you
can,
think, right?
let's see if we can address
I don't want to speak on that, but I'm looking at Ed's face on how much it's going to cost to do an entire new sound light board in that auditorium. You're talking, I'm going over
Really?
50,000, 100,000, yeah, so.
Well, let's find out what it
it.
is.
We have to do our due diligence and
Yeah, so that needs to be researched.
When did it break?
They've been using it. It's had intermittent issues. I can tell you the IT people have been repairing it, fixing it, adjusting it. So I don't know that it's not completely workable at all. Laura, is it not working at all?
It's not working at all. I can turn on
So I know they
lights
used
from
it for the-
backstage, but not from out the auditorium.
Yeah, they used it at the concert this winter, so I don't know.
let's do this. We'll get you someday, in the very, very near future, with Kyle, with me, with Ed or whoever, we'll take a walk through, you show us what, and then we look.
Thank you.
Laurel, can I just, when is the show that you have?
Crazy for you,
And when is it?
crazy for you.
When?
So when?
And
I'm sorry.
April.
When? April 28, 29, 30.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right.
And I assume you're already,
Oh, yes, we're well into rehearsals, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, Gail Mulholland?
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, but I'm here for two things. I haven't heard yet if I'm the official representative for the Lehighton Library Board.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Actually, no.
No?
Remember, we talked to Jeff, and Jeff said that our liaisons need to be board members.
I don't think he said for the library though.
According to the library bylaws, it does not say that I need to be a board member.
I'm sorry, I do remember that.
I will re-verify.
It might have been the wellness committee, because that's an actual school committee, not a board committee.
Okay, I
I
will
did have the
verify.
librarian look over the bylaws at the library, and she said it just has to be someone appointed by the school board.
Okay.
So,
I thought it was along the lines of the L-Tri-C representative.
Perhaps, I mean, I just asked him one question, and I took it as a blanket answer, but I can pinpoint this one appointment and verify it.
because there's a meeting tomorrow night, and I wanted to talk if I was official or not. Okay. The other question, the other thing I'd like to talk about is the Lions Kids Site program that was implemented here at the school, and then somehow people voted against it and it was taken out. and I'd like to see it reinstated. I did talk to a Lions representative that does this type of work, and they are willing to come back in, no hard feelings. The program really helped our kids. And I cannot understand why it was taken out except for political reasons, and that just isn't fair to our kids. So I'd like to see the board vote on this and get it reinstated. What I will do for the next meeting is if I could email it to one person and they forward it to the rest of the board, and I'll scan these things that I have here, because I only have enough for myself.
Sure thing. Thanks, Gail. I mean, just for Jack's benefit, this was before Jack was here, but Gail works with the local Lions group, and they have purchased these devices where they can scan kids' eyes and see if there's cancer or other problems. And they came into the schools briefly, and they were doing these examinations, which take like moments, and then for some reason the program was stopped. And the perception, of course, is that it was for political reasons, and Gail would like to reinstate that.
It was done in the entire elementary center.
Yeah, about 60% of the kids had issues with their eyes. So I can't understand why you would want to stop that.
So I think Jack just needs to talk to the nurses.
If I may, who performs the test?
They're volunteers with the Lions. They're all trained by the Lions Club.
So
They're $15,000 they pay for the cameras. The cameras, they stand in front of a child, take a picture, it takes a picture of their eyes, and they can tell exactly what's wrong with them. Then the parents get paperwork back home. The Lions Clubs will help pay for glasses if there's children that can't afford them. But,
And they have all their clearances.
Yeah, my only question is, and I'm just trying to get information that whoever is performing this is certified to be able to say you have an issue, you don't have an issue, a professional or whoever that is.
the camera does all the work. The person can just hold the camera, they just have to hold it steady, the camera does all the work.
Okay, I mean, I'm learning.
And so what I can give you is, I will scan all this paperwork. I mean, in some schools out west, this is the only thing they have for the kids. And they found thousands and thousands of kids that need, I know they did this up in Coaldale at preschool, and they found a girl that was going blind, 3 years old. Now, why wouldn't we want that help for our children? It just makes no sense. And
At the
it's very
time, it was
frustrating that-
controversial because they thought that we wanted to get rid of the regular eye tests that the nurses did, which was not the case. This was just in addition to.
There's no cost for this program. They're all volunteers that come in and do the work. Each child comes home with paper. The parents have to sign a permission slip in order to have their child's eyes tested.
Yes, I mean, we had this before. I don't think it's a controversial thing. I would just like Jack to verify with the nurses.
Yeah.
Okay. Gail, would you send everything to Janine, and then Janine will
Okay.
make sure it goes.
I have all this, and I mean, I probably have a whole lot more at home, but I can look up the statistics from even the presentations to the wellness committee back when I was on the board, and I could not believe the reception here, because, I mean, I said, out west, this is, the Lions started a program to help the elderly with healthcare. And then they found out that teachers were bringing in children because the children had no healthcare. Well, then they ended up getting a ban. And from there, they were invited into the schools and started doing eye exams for all the children. So it kind of evolved from what they thought the community needed into something that really was needed. And I just think we can do so much good for our kids.
If you would get everything to Janine,
I will definitely have.
we'll make sure it's on.
I'll scan it, or I'll make copies and bring it over.
It's okay.
Because this is the only copy I have. But I spoke with Dave Leon from Strasburg Lions Club, And he's definitely willing to come in here and help our kids.
What other schools do this, yeah?
They did it in Tamaqua. They've done it for most of the preschools in the area. They've done it here for our pre-K counts for the last couple of years. But it was, I mean, they made comments here at that meeting with the nurses. The nurses said that they had to put a phone into that room. That was a lie because there was a phone in the room when the school was built.
Yeah, we don't, I know.
Doesn't matter.
It's so frustrating.
It's a new board.
You get it to us, we'll make sure that it's
Yeah, no, I
discussed.
appreciate you bringing this up because we're forgetting a lot of things with so much going on.
Oh, you have a lot on your plate, and I commend all of you for being here and trying so hard to fix some of the problems that we've had. And I want to thank Mr. Corby for coming forward and helping get this all straightened
No,
out.
I said a long time ago, it's my pleasure, I'm working with 9 people who want to move ahead, and I appreciate that, and the community, that's what it's all about.
But I just thought this was missed, this was taken away from our kids several years ago. How many kids along the line, this finds nearsighted, farsighted, it finds astigmatism, it finds all kinds of things, and kids can't learn it, they can't see. I wear glasses, and I'm so grateful that I can have glasses so I can see because I'm getting practically blind now. And for kids to be at school and they don't even know what they're supposed to see about, getting examined. One kid that came here, when I was there when they were testing him, he had the wrong prescription on him, total wrong prescription. And that's what these kids are going for.
Well, it's not only this, but the Lions Club also helps to provide glasses for children that can't afford them and don't have insurance, so that's
There's several
That's another
Lions
thing.
clubs in the area, and many of them will come forward if we're contacted, hey, we need glasses for 2 or 3 kids. They can certainly do it. It's not the kids that have parents that are on, welfare, but it's the parents that are low income. They're the ones that need help.
Thanks, Kim.
Okay, thank you.
Bernadette Rodriguez?
Hi, first of all, I want to thank the board for this opportunity. I am sad to see that not very many of our community is here. And I also want to say thank you. We suffered a house fire recently, and the Honor Society got together and was inclusive of my son and I to help us, and we're doing very well to support the community and have a renewed sense of faith in the community because of many outpouring of love, and I just want to take personal moment to say thank you for that. I'm here to talk about perhaps getting more money allocated toward educating our teachers on special education. I have a son who has Asperger's, and we've been struggling through the school district.
it's okay. Take a minute.
There's just not a lot of understanding, and there needs to be a lot of more education for our teachers, okay? And we also need to make the school district, like a lot of other people said, a place where teachers want to come to teach. You don't give your substitute teachers enough to want to come here. The money that you're offering them is not comparable. You need to investigate what's going on in other schools and see what kind of health benefits that they're offering. We are losing so many good people. Okay, so that needs to be first looked into, I believe. And second, when it comes to special education, there's just not a lot of inclusion or understanding. It's not from the teachers when they say that they have a literal child and they say just simple things to each other in front of students, like, oh, it's going to be funny when he fails. The students perceive that they are being made fun of, or that this is a joke to teachers, and you start to get sided. You know, it's them against us, or it's the parents against the teachers, or it's the, you know, the masked versus the unmasked, or the Democrats versus the Republicans. It can't be that way anymore, and I really appreciate you calling us together to try to unify us. It goes beyond saying that you are really trying to move forward, and I appreciate that beyond belief. So with that new sense of inclusion, I hope that we can move forward in a way that make the school district appealing to others to want to be here, appealing to teachers who want to be here. So I really want to investigate what you're putting in to paying our educators and the teachers who are in it to win it here. It's important that we keep them. You're losing many of them. I really think that there should be money allocated towards special education so there's a better understanding for our students in the district of what they're going through, and some sensitizing towards some teachers who have tenure and think they can just say whatever they want. All right? That is my advice, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Bernadette, it goes further, and I say this to the board, and I've said the board and I have talked about this in the community. We are in the process of going out and looking to get a new superintendent in the school district. Someone who's going to lead this district forward for many, many years. And that's what we have to do as a district and a community right now, and attracting somebody. Show this person the really heightened. Because if not, I don't know what's going to happen. So there is a lot of good in this district, and we have to, as a group, really begin to promote that and get the people who want to become part of that to apply and hire, because it's going to be years of going out. So that's what we all have to start doing.
Yes, no, I believe a moral board and a step forward, inviting the community in to get their opinion was a step in the right direction. And it is so grateful and so appreciated.
It really is all about the kids in the end. That's why we're here. That's why we have a public school. They need to be protected, they need to be understood. And that is why we're all here. Had I had any idea it was this bad, I might have reconsidered.
I mean, some things we can tell you, Bernadette, is I don't know if you've noticed, but Jake is our Title IX coordinator, and there was Title IX training for the staff a week ago. And part of that is related to what you're talking about, to better serve students in special circumstances. So we are working on those items. And related to what Laurel had brought up, I think she's gone, and what you said, you know, we are renegotiating the contract, and we are aware, I think Ed was the first person to alert us that our salaries at the starting end are on the low end. And we're aware of those things, and we're planning to make corrections.
Good, thank you, yeah. All members, thank you.
Catherine Hostler?
Hi, I'm a grandparent raising a child who is multiracial. He's Inca Indian with a quarter of African American in it. He has been bullied in this school, something terribly, and I mean terribly. He came home crying the one day, telling us all that the kid did to him in the class. The teacher saw it. The teacher was crying at what was happening. The principal didn't know when I left a message for her. She had to go and find out what was going on. I never got a call back, so I don't know what happened, but I do know the boy is still bullying him big time. And he almost told my husband the other day to come in and get him at school because he was afraid the kid was going to beat him up in the hallway. Now, this can't continue. My grandson is very quiet, he's shy, he doesn't come out and say much, And the difference between before COVID started and when COVID started, and he was remotely learning, he was top-notch, earning all up in the 90s. He had nothing below 90s. Come down, he's down in the 70s because he's bullied. Kids make fun of him in the classroom because he has autism spectrum disorder. He has ADHD and just recently diagnosed with epilepsy. So he cannot sometimes get his words out because the medication he's on for epilepsy kind of creates a brain fog, and your brain doesn't function to the point where you can get the words out. There's a delay sometimes of 30 seconds to 45 seconds before he can get it out. Well, the kids made fun of him for it. I've been trying since he's been in middle school to get him an IEP. I have been turned down numerous times. A judge from up in Scranton even told the school district he needs an IEP. Turned down. Why was he turned down? Because his grades are too high. Quote unquote. Every year it's the same thing. They gave him a 504, big whoopee. The teachers think it's a joke. He asked for more time on a math test. He was told no. He needed more time on the PSA, and he was told no. He needs it. He can't get the things out. When he's reading, he has to go back and reread because his brain isn't firing like your brain and my brain. And I've mentioned this. I've written it on all the forms when you have to sign them for the new classes. I let the teachers all know he needs extra time. It doesn't work. His math teacher, when he asked for help, she said to him, because he's in mostly honors classes, and when he asked for help, she told him, well, you don't belong in this class, so why are you in here? And I'm not giving you the help. And she went, and he went and he said, well, I have one student that gives me about 30 minutes a day. He's a senior, and he was helping him. And she would, instead of telling them how to do the problem from step 1 to step 10, she would leave off the first 3-4 steps, thinking you should have known how to do that. Well, when your brain isn't functioning, you can't always put that together. So he needed every step. And I tried telling her that when we had our parent-teacher conferences, and she said, well, he just doesn't belong in my class. That's it. He should have never been in it. And I'm like, but all the other kids are struggling too. Look at your grades. And she said, you don't know that. I said, I do. My grandson told me they're all trying to figure out how to do it. He'll come home, I'll show him how to do it. He'll go back to school and teach the kids then how to do it. Give me a break. I'm not a teacher in this school district. Yes, I used to teach mathematics, but not in this school district. And I can't believe how math is taught in this school, let alone all the other subjects. Now, the subject he has with metal shop is where he's being bullied big time. Totally big time. He can't walk in that classroom without, I'm not even going to tell you the words that these kids are saying. And it's not fair to him. He's human, just like me, just like you. And the school board needs to do something. I need to know what happened to this kid that did all this when he was allowed back in the classroom. The only thing they did was move his seat. But he still gets them coming in and out of the classroom. All day long, he'll see him in the hall, he'll do it. And it's not fair.
Can we look into it for you?
Yes, please.
Yes. Dr. Boyer, would you help me with that? Sure. He's here. We will look into it.
Yeah.
Dr. Boyer will.
Hang on, Dave. So, yes, so Jack and Jake will get on top of this. They will find out about it. I mean, in general, the board can't deliberate on a specific student situation. What I can say is that every now and then, us individually have heard from a parent or someone who have described situation not dissimilar from yours where every day the same students are picking on, you know, their grandson or their child, and we're working on that. Like I said, you know, we hired Jake and had him trained and appointed as a Title IX coordinator, and part of the task that we've given to Jake is to follow up on these sorts of things and try to eliminate this serial bullying and these kind of...
It can't be getting swept under the rug, and that's what's happening.
There is a no bullying tolerance, right?
Supposedly.
Exactly, it really needs to be enforced. It needs to be enforced.
Can I say something to everybody? There's a chain of command here, and I realize that at some point it broke down.
Yes.
Okay, it's go to the teacher first. If you do not get satisfaction, you go to the principal.
Yeah.
If you do not get satisfaction, you go to the superintendent or the assistant to the superintendent. We have a different acting superintendent and assistant to the superintendent now.
Now,
They will
but I went
handle
to the principal who was at the time the acting assistant superintendent. So she knew. She was both positions. And I haven't heard anything.
Well, I will guarantee you that we will look into it. I can't make you any promises
Right.
because I don't know the backgrounds, and I'd be lying to you if I said something
Right.
later, and I don't want to do that.
Right, no, I want you to just look into it and, you know, try and give him an education that,
Yeah, he needs to get his grades back up.
Exactly.
Happy again.
well, I asked to put him virtual again because, we can't keep doing this. His grades are falling, he wants to be a vet. How can you be a vet when your grades are falling because of being bullied in school?
Yeah, I've heard about
And the other fact is he can't get an IP for the help he needs through Title IX or whatever, because it's like his brain just isn't functioning, but everybody thinks he's normal. And it isn't, he isn't, he's far from normal. And I try not to say things at home because I don't want him to feel like that he has something wrong with him. He already feels that because of everybody making fun of him at school. And so it's difficult on our end. Now here we're grandparents raising kids. This is my second grandkid I've raised. And the other one went through here fine, she's 25, but this child, he has had nothing but heartache. And since the school district won't let him go virtual, I'm stuck with sending him to school. And we did look into going up here to this charter school, but
CCA.
yeah, he doesn't want to do it.
May I ask why he's not able to go virtual here? I don't have the-
They said once it was over, it was over.
once the enrollment.
No, they were not letting it again.
Oh, you mean the one
You're talking about, you're talking, I can.
Oh, hi.
So you're talking, what you're referring to is not the LAVA program, you're talking
No.
about the ability to Zoom. And
Yeah.
that is not an option in Lehigh Area School District anymore, where students are allowed to be at home and Zoom as well. So it's either be in the brick and mortar or do the LAVA.
We will
do have
definitely
a
look into
virtual
it. I can
program.
understand your frustration and things, but we will look into it.
Yeah, including getting an IEP?
That whole special issue there with IEPs and that sort of testing that goes on there, that would have to be looked into.
Well, I want it looked into. I want something done for him.
Okay.
And, you know, he's a wonderful kid. If you get to know him, he's just terrific. And he's very bright. And now it's just like everything's going like this because no one's helping him.
This is also where you give Dr. Boyer your phone number, and then we will be in touch.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And thank you all for whatever you can do to help us.
Thank you.
I'd also like to reassure the community that this board will not sweep bullying under the rug. That was one of our main goals when we got here. That will not happen under our watch, so they'll take care of it.
Joy, real quick. Can you please add to the website the ability for a parent to make a formal complaint, formal written complaint, so that it can be addressed? Because it sounds like the general public does not know the path to which to get satisfaction for their student that they are advocating for. And it's that problem that has permeated this district for decades.
Yep.
It should be a well-established, well-written
We'll add
procedure.
the process for making the complaint, and we can put a form.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it will be easily found. There's been some restructuring of the website, and it's actually quite nice. I've looked.
I'd like to say about the website, there's a lot of links that shouldn't even be there anymore. Teachers, administration have gone. That if you search on the web, you can actually link to their pages. So that should be like one of the first steps when an employee leaves, is their page is gone.
Yeah, but now we have we actually have one that says Title IX coordinator. I've been looking through and I've seen improvements.
The whole packet.
That I haven't looked at because it's 254 pages, but I've looked at the first few.
We're moving ahead.
Yes, we are, and we're making progress, so keep watching the website, you'll see things are improving.
Together.
So we've gotten to the end of our papers, but would anyone else from the public like to speak before we move on?
I would, I didn't bring it up.
Ah,
That's all right.
there we go. That's why I asked.
Thank you.
So I'm Carrie Dale. I have two kids in the middle school. They're across from me. And we're new to this district. Initially, when my kids started school, they were told they couldn't start school because they were ready, but the school district didn't allow kids to start before the cutoff date. So anyway, we switched them actually during COVID. And so this is their first year attending in class in the district. And I'm just trying to familiarize myself with how everything is done. And I've noticed, as many people have brought up, that there have been a lot of teachers that have left, even since the kids just started, leaving in the middle of the school year, which is really unusual from what I've seen in the past. In other places. So that to me kind of indicated that there's some sort of problem, and it sounds like you guys are aware of that and working on it, which is good. The other thing that really concerned me, and this came up a couple of times, was just some of the technology practices, not just the website, but requiring kids to use both their user ID for both their login and their password is really bad security practice, and especially since those IDs are used for like getting lunches and stuff. Like, kids figure out each other's IDs, and then they can log in, they can see each other's grades, they can send messages as if they were that child, which happened to my son, and it's really not that difficult to set up Google SSO. I know the school uses Google with all the kids. You can set up Google with PowerSchool, with Canvas. Like, there's a lot to improve some of the technology practices. And, you know, if the district is strapped for resources, like, I have sent emails about problems on the website, and it kind of got bounced around all over the place because I guess it sounds like there's lots of different people that are managing the site, so maybe that's why it got bounced around. But, you know, if there's opportunities for parents to volunteer to help with things like that, you know, I'm more than happy to help with some of that setup stuff over the summer.
Are you a web designer?
Not a web designer. But I work in software technology, so I actually work for PowerSchool. And I don't know what kind of opportunities there are for volunteering either. And I'm new into the district, and the very first thing I saw was this wellness committee, so I volunteered for that. But I just haven't seen a lot of outreach to parents. It seems, and I know it's a weird time with COVID and everything, but I would hope that there would be more opportunities for parents to get involved.
That's why we're having this meeting.
Okay.
That's the whole reason we want the community involved in the district. It's something that certainly seemed to be lacking for the last decade or so. And I've only been involved as far as really watching the district since early 2018. I refused to get involved prior to, now I'm sorry I didn't, but it is what it is. But that's the whole reason for this meeting, and I'm sorry for the short notice for everybody. We didn't expect this many people to be here tonight, and I'm glad to see how many are here and how many have spoken. This is the first meeting of this type. I think we're going to have a couple more because we want to get a vision for the district that can be measured to see if we're reaching our goals. Just to say excellence in education, how do you measure that? It needs to be concrete goals that can be measured, and then if we're not making those goals, how do we change the vision to get there? And that's certainly volunteers would be, I mean, yes, you need clearances and all that stuff, and how that would work is kind of beyond the board. But the whole point of this meeting is, what do you need, and how can we work together to provide it? And I thank you.
Also, thank you for bringing up the secure password issue.
Yeah.
My son was actually hacked just the other day. I received a phone call from the middle school principal. And yeah, that practice is just not
Really not good.
I mean, maybe the elementary center, but as you get to like the 5th grade, middle school, as you move on, teach the kids secure password handling. Let them understand. I know it might be a pain for some of the teachers to have to call somebody, get somebody's password once in a while, but if you teach them the proper way to manage their own passwords, especially if they're carrying around their own devices, they can manage their passwords right on the device. So yeah, very good point, and yeah, my son was there as well. So.
And most middle school kids far outdo us elderly on how to use technology. So I can just imagine what they're capable of doing, even though they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, as early as 4th and 5th grade, they're playing Roblox and owning their own games.
They know all their passwords.
Yes.
So for us to think that they don't know how to change their password, I mean, we do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's some way there could be a nice balance with that to keep other kids from hacking into other kids' accounts.
Yeah, and one of the easiest ways is just to set up SSO through Google, because then you don't have to remember a password for PowerSchool and a password for Canvas, and you know, it's just one Google account. Okay, well, I'm glad, you know, that you guys are doing this. It sounds like you've got your work cut out for you. And please keep reaching out and letting us know how we can help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jack, on the tail of these other things, I asked you to get us information about the test scores, but could you also get us data on how many of our kids have IEPs and how many of our kids are on reduced lunch and things like that?
Yeah, that's easy. I can't mention names, but.
No, it's just numbers.
Statistics, just statistics, to
Just
help us
metrics.
make decisions going forward.
We were just provided numbers, Jack, weren't we, for the CLIU? Or does that not count as IEPs?
That, yeah, you're not, yeah, that is the kids that the IU serves. But then there could be others in our schools that we don't, that we take care of.
Oh.
There could be a discrepancy because it's two institutions doing it.
Oh.
But we could get that, that's it.
Yeah, and since we're talking about that, and Wally is not here, he was messaging me and he was asking questions about how many of our kids are in various charter schools, especially,
And with all that, you're putting together the budget.
I think it's 168.
168.
Which is a lot better than last year.
Oh, I'm sure. And he was specifically asking about how many kids were at BHA because, you know, that's not a choice, right?
No.
Kids are sent there for doing something wrong, right?
It's not necessarily something wrong, it's just that we don't have the resources to handle their needs.
Okay. So, yeah, I think if Wally were here, he would probably want more information about how many children are in which charter school.
That's easy.
Yeah,
And has a lot of that, Samantha has a lot of that.
Samantha has a lot of that. The charter schools I can get, but it's part of the budget presentation anyway, so.
great. Anyone else from the public wish to speak before we move along? Okay, great. So, at this point, we'll move on to community workshop, district vision, item A, and I think I'll invite board members to speak if they want to talk about any particular topics. Otherwise, I mean, my point of view is I'm just kind of absorbing what others are bringing forward here and thinking about, and, you know, we'll obviously have future meetings.
First, of course, students are what we're here for. So anything that we discuss with the vision moving forward, the students are going to be first. And obviously, with the students comes education, because that's what we're here for as well. So anything that we build going forward needs to be built around the students, their safety, their educational needs, health concerns that we can address in the school district. There's so many things that encompass that, and it really has to be all about the kids. I mean, there's also other things such as transparency, inclusion. I mean, these are items that we have to think about when we're making a vision for the district. Because nowadays, I mean, inclusion is extremely important. As Kathy was saying, you know, her grandson he's excluded because he's different. And we need to make it readily apparent that everybody is welcome in the school district. And it's just, you know, some key things that I was thinking on about our vision going forward. Again, with transparency being up there, and it seems that we have already started to move down the road of transparent actions. So we can build from there.
Jeremy, what you reminded me of, and I forgot to ask Jack too. Jack, you had told me about at Whitehall what your vision was in that school district. And didn't you say that it was on doors within the school and things? I mean, it's just an example that gets people thinking about what a potential vision could look like.
It was displayed everywhere. It was displayed when you walked into a classroom. It was displayed in my office. It was displayed all over. We spent some money to do it, but it was always reinforced that people saw that. At first you memorized it, you saw it so often, but then when you walk into a building and you walk into a classroom, it was there and you knew what those words meant. But
and what was it?
No, I will be honest with you. It was not really a measurable. I will be honest with you. It was not really a measurable, because it's very, very difficult to say. President Bush 20 years ago came out and said by 2000 whatever, all students will be proficient. It's not going to happen, because I just heard we have kids that have special needs, and they aren't going to perform at the levels of proficient because the state puts out the same test to everyone except for a small group of 1% or 2% of the kids. So you could set these goals that have numbers to them, but it's very, very difficult to obtain. But you can put some things like we had in there, that life learners, and we will prepare you to go into that real world, and those types of things. So that's what I've been looking at. But to go back to, we've got good kids here, and we have to continue to reinforce that. I've seen a star football player take a special needs, life skills young lady to the prom, and it was genuine. It was genuine. I saw kids, we used to host the Special Olympics. Kids got out of school, kids were released to go up there and help all those those kids who are participating that day. They're the things that we've got to begin to really promote. And kids will volunteer to do those things. Believe me, they will volunteer. So, you know, you're going to have those one or two, and Jake and I will address those one or two. But, you know, don't shortchange the rest of the kids. We have to provide those opportunities for them. It's a good school district.
Just like to jump in and say also, I think it's so important that we continue and we improve on how we support things that aren't necessarily measured with grades. Things like the extracurriculars, music program, you know, for wood shop, metal shop, all these things. Things that may not necessarily lead students to something they'll do as a career, but something they'll continue to do and enjoy and find value in for the rest of their lives. And sometimes those are the first things to be pushed to the side or ignored. But there's some students who come to, that's the most valuable part of their day. To them, it's just a place where they find acceptance, where they find enjoyment. And a lot of times that can provide the support that gets them through many of the other challenges that they face. So I think it's so important that we don't simply focus on checking the boxes, the grades they need to have, and the tests they need to pass. But what are we doing to give the students a well-rounded experience in many areas they continue to be involved in for the rest of their life?
Do we know what year of our comprehensive plan we're in? I've just seen a copy of it. Do we have a copy of it somewhere?
It's on the website.
I can't find it.
Where?
I ordered it 16 times to get to it.
Now, actually, what you have to do is go to the search feature and put in comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And then you will get a list of 20 documents. Pick carefully.
We are coming up for review, but what I am going to try to do is to apply for an extension of a year, because I feel with a new superintendent and a new assistant superintendent coming in, and Jake and I can be part of that too at some point, but I would like their input. So I'm going to try, we may get the extension, but it's coming up in August.
Okay, I think that'll be a good opportunity for this board to be involved in that.
You have to.
So we're in the tail end of a 6-year plan. I don't know how many people were involved in that, so I think if that's where we're setting goals and things like that, that'll definitely help.
Technically, you have to be, you have to, parents, community, students, teachers, board, administration, it's a collaborative effort, and it should be.
Okay. Thank you.
Using the word tribe, as I was discussing before the meeting, I was getting nerdy here, and thanks Joy for pointing it out.
Yeah. Super nerdy.
And it is, and this may elicit a laugh from the audience, but transparency, respect, inclusion, building education.
Try it.
Exactly, something.
I guess I'm a nerd.
There we go. We can build on something like that, where we can put sentences after describing what we mean by the transparency, describing what we mean by building, describing what we mean, obviously by respect and education and inclusion. I mean, that's kind of what Jack is alluding to with what you had on your wall. You had something short, sweet, and something that everybody could remember. And, like I said, using the word tribe, we could do something like that. I mean, we have used brave, that was used, but there's just another idea to throw out there.
You have LASD now. There is a sentences to go with the L, the A, and the S.
I've never seen that, Jack.
That's in my office.
Take a picture, send it to me.
No, why don't we just all take a walk back?
Yeah, let's go.
I saw the Indian.
But there's two things we come out of this, a vision statement and a mission statement, which can be different.
Right.
I just wanted to stress to you guys, we're all on the same team here. We all have the same goals, we just have a little bit different ideas of how to get there. And this new board, we're really willing to compromise and to listen to you guys. And it might be our board, but it's your board too. And I just wanted to let you guys know that, if you don't already know that.
One of our campaign promises was that we would listen, and we will listen. And I don't make any promises that I can't keep, so we will listen, even if I'm the only one. But I'm sure that there's way more than me that are listening, because we all really care. And we are here to serve you. We're here to serve the teachers, the administration, the children, and the parents. It takes a village, and we are all part of that village. So please keep showing up.
All right. I think that everyone's satisfied. That'll be the end of the board comments. We also have part 3, public comment for the end before adjournment. Any wrap-ups?
I got one real quick. You guys have the ability to do a robocall? Oh.
That felt good.
But the board has the ability, I don't even think this thing's on, but the board has the ability to do a robocall. Highly recommend that this change in attitude, which is significant, be expressed to the public to say, on February X, we had a meeting, X number of people showed up, they offered these many ideas, we appreciate that they were there, we'll have another one of these meetings on this date, please be aware, someone's listening. I don't think that this information gets out to the public yet, and you haven't had any snow days, so burn one of your robocalls on that. Thank you.
I will say that and I'm not sure how everybody in the audience was made aware of it, but we did put it out on 2 robocalls. We did it Friday, we did it last night. It was advertised.
Oh, really? Great.
It was advertised in the Times News twice, and it is on the splash page and our webpage.
Awesome. Does the robocall include taxpayers or just parents?
Parents, that's all we have access to the numbers.
Okay. Is there a way to get in touch with the taxpayers of the community that are also stakeholders?
And well, we put it on the Times News twice, and that's Saturday, and the splash page on the web, and Ed put it out Friday afternoon and put it out last night.
Great.
We'll get better at this, getting the information out there. We're glad a lot of people showed up tonight.
And once the community gets used to the fact that we're
listening,
listening, then they'll be more willing to show up.
You also have our email addresses. A lot of us actually do check it every day. I mean, some are a little busy, they don't get a chance to do it. But we will read and we will, at the next meeting, we'll probably discuss what we read.
Maybe we can advertise the next meeting as bring a friend.
Bring a friend, get a donut.
Yeah, bring a bar, if anybody wants baby cookies for next.
It might be good to kind of explain what you're looking for at the community meetings, because I wasn't sure what I was walking into. I'm like, this is my first meeting, I'll just come and see what it's like.
We have a better feeling now.
This one was meant to be completely free-form. The other meetings we have set agendas, and there will be future visioning meetings, but they're going to be more structured going forward. But that structure is going to be based on the things that we heard tonight. So this is the loosest meeting we've ever had, where it's just like, people can talk about whatever you want.
But if there's a significant change, and it sounds like there has been, it might be good to share that information so people know what to expect.
And would you help us do that too?
I will try. I don't know a lot of people in the community.
I am being honest that you folks are here. Spread the word. Help us also.
Word of mouth is a powerful thing. I work at Giant. And every day I have at least 2 people that walk up to me because I'm not allowed to discuss politics at work. My management has told me that. But they'll go like this and say, keep up the good work, which means they know things are happening here. And they're in agreement. I have the occasional person that says, what do you think you're doing? But that's all part of it too. The word is out there, but I can't always say, well, tell your friends. But if you can tell your friends, somebody tells one person and they tell 2 people and they tell 3 people. I mean, things used to be a lot different in the past. They've gotten better over the previous 4 years, and they're even better now. So we need the community. We don't know, we can go by our own ideas of what's right and what you need, but if you come and tell us, then we really know. And the more people that tell us what they need, the better the overall picture we have of how to move the district forward to do the best we can for the students and the entire community. But without your input, we don't know. We only have our own concept of what would work.
And that goes for the teachers too. I mean, we always hear.
Absolutely.
We always hear from the parents, but we don't always hear from the teachers. And, you know, if we're not told, how could we know? Sort of like when your kids don't tell you something, they think you know, and you're just sitting there looking at them and you're like, how could I possibly know that? You know, we had a few teachers in here, Laura's a teacher, but I mean, if you don't, we don't know. If they might think we know, well, I told this person, but that doesn't mean we know. And I know.
Well, it's just like the issue with the whiteboard that Laurel Zimmerman brought up. We never heard that. I've gone to, and I read the minutes of the building and grounds meetings.
I'll tell you this, there's a lot of staff members that don't come because one, they fear retribution, and they also fear of being harassed.
Well, let me just
board
say
members,
this.
Community members.
Retribution.
And I know there's a collective bargaining agreement, I understand that, but there's also a trickle-down effect that comes down and it comes back to the teachers. I'm not saying it's happening, but I'm saying staff members feel that way.
Well, I know I've heard that in the past.
And it's not just because of previous board and this board, if that is just a general feel, that's it. School boards, school districts all over the country, staff members don't show up because they fear retribution. So that's something you're going to deal with, regardless as to which way it's going to go, but that is an issue that you will have to face.
I mean, we understand that, but again, we hear from the public all the time. They're always gonna complain or give us mostly complaints. But if we don't hear from the teachers, everything is two-sided. But again, how could we?
And staff members can provide anonymous information to the board at any time through the email.
That's what I was thinking, anonymous,
Right.
talking to us in an anonymous
But
manner.
there again, anonymous, how much is it going to be taken seriously because it's anonymous? So it's a catch-22.
But with a moral government, they're gonna listen regardless of who said it.
I think that we're starting to have an open dialogue, and I think it will get better.
It's not just that, it's also, the superintendent is also the spokesperson for the staff. And they can go to the superintendent with concerns that can be brought to us. In the past, I have been told by staff members that they wouldn't do that for fear of retribution. It wasn't retribution from the board. We have a new acting superintendent who has a total different outlook, it seems, okay? Hopefully, we will be able to find a superintendent that will understand the board's vision of how this needs to go. Open, honest communication with moral principles applied. We're not going to know until we hire that person.
Right, and it's going to take some time, and it's going to
Right.
take some time for some trust to be built up with staff members too.
Absolutely.
So it's going to take a long time and just.
But we have the same issue with the parents. There were people removed years ago from meetings by the police for speaking out.
Why?
That won't happen here, because we want to hear.
understand that.
As long as the staff knows, and, I mean, we had a couple of board members do some research and find out that what we're paying substitutes is far less than other districts.
It goes across the board, it's not just substitutes.
Yes, I know that now. I mean, I know that now.
A lot of people.
There's a lot of adjustments that need to be made, and that's part of the negotiations. And that's why this time we have someone doing the negotiations, not board members. We're working on it. I would like to see our starting salary raised. I would like to, there's a lot of things I would like to change, but it's not my area of expertise. So, but we want the entire community, and that includes teachers, to know that we are here to listen.
Okay, do we have any other public comments?
I have one more, and I'm sorry, I meant to say it, and I forgot. My grandson's in the band, and you have a wonderful, wonderful band here, let me tell you. And, but their uniforms are falling apart. And I know the instructor came and asked for money for uniforms and didn't get any. You need to really address it. Our band keeps growing because we have now middle school in with the high school. So, I mean, it's huge. And these kids, they're so smart with these instruments. And some of the instruments are falling apart. When they have to duct tape instruments together to use them, there's a problem. So that's another issue that the board needs to address.
That's a good point. We have a 5-year plan, I believe it is, for replacing athletic uniforms.
That's my understanding.
So why don't we have that type of plan for our band uniforms, etc.?
We are when we sat with Sue with the high school budget, we began this discussion because more kids are coming out. We've got to dress them and all that. So it is in the talks. We did. And another thing, we sat last week with Mr. Buffington, and something that we did at Whitehall years ago, if anyone in the community has an instrument in their attic or laying around that they do not use, they retired, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Let's get that on the website.
Yeah.
Because, some kids can't afford it, and, if we have to give you a donation slip that you contributed, we'll be glad to do that, but there are so many instruments probably laying in attics that have been retired years ago, and people would just welcome the opportunity to see a kid out there playing that instrument that they retired or they played years ago. So, again, we've got to publicize that.
Yeah, and these kids in the band, I mean, they play more than one instrument. My grandson plays 4 instruments, and he wants a 5th one now, but I can't afford to keep buying these instruments. So I told him, unless Mr. Buffington has a spare one, forget it. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up, which is really important, and I don't know, quote unquote, how true it is, but the kids in band were complaining about the auditorium having mold in the ceiling. And my grandson's really allergic to a lot of mold.
Which auditorium?
No.
In the high school?
Yeah, in the high school, yeah. And so if he doesn't wear a mask in the auditorium, he can't breathe. So it's really bad.
We haven't had any reports of that at all, so
Okay.
I want to put that issue.
Talk to Mr. Buffington too.
I will be glad to, but I don't want to send that message out because.
Right, but it needs to be looked at, because you're gonna make kids even more sick once.
We would not allow that to happen.
Yeah,
Right.
once they're not allowed to wear masks,
I mean, the high school was just recently renovated, so if there's an issue, we need to know.
Yeah, ask Mr.
So it'll get looked
Buffington.
into.
He can show you where it's at, because Avery sits away from that just because of where the mold is, so.
Well, Dalton, If you have it, please don't say that,
I won't.
that is there, because it hasn't been, and Sue has
Right.
not heard anything, and she's the high school principal.
Right.
So we can't say that the mold is there, because it's
Right.
not.
Yeah, it could be something like just, some spots that got wet or something.
You're exactly.
And, so I'm just bringing it up because the kids are saying it's mold. I don't know that, as I said, quote unquote.
Right.
But do please look into it because it's for the safety of our kids. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Joy, I know I'm a frequent commenter, but it was brought up today, and I think it would be very valuable for you to get educated by your solicitor on how intimidation and retaliation against whistleblowers within a government system is so highly illegal that the feds will get involved, the state will get involved, and nobody should feel that way. And we already do have whistleblowers that have been showing up anonymously and or identified. And when the whistleblower does show up, it has to be addressed. Just like whatever she just said right there has to be addressed by this government agency instantaneously. And I'm sure Jack tomorrow will be taking a peek.
Yeah.
And we understand that. But I think that general understanding is missing. And I think you did have an oppression in the past government agency that was significant. Like Barb mentioned, people being removed by the police. They need to know that the world has changed. You have a moral majority board. And this is how the process works. You can't have anybody fearing retaliation from trying to protect students or saving the community. They have to be able to step up and say something. If they see something, they have to be able to say something without any fear of retaliation or intimidation.
And if it's a staff member, they are required
to
by law.
And to add to your great compliment, you guys got an occupancy permit in the elementary center that was years overdue. If any one of those employees called the state and said, I'm in a building without an occupancy permit, I want it inspected, the problem would have been resolved instantly because there is a state program that allows that to occur. They're protected. Outside of this corrupt government, you have a whole system of people that are there for the kids and there for the community and there for the education. And with this new moral board, you have the ability to do that. But I do believe if you don't educate, it's going to repopulate, and it's a problem. You need to educate them on how it works. I think the new solicitor would be very helpful in that regard with the release.
Okay, understood, Dave. Things are getting better every day.
Yep, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions?
So if nobody from the audience has, could I interject also, would it be possible, just in line with hearing communication from teachers, and we all know that's valuable to us, would it be possible for the board to draft a letter, a document, an email, something that could go out to the teachers? Because many of them, they never show up at a meeting here, and they probably are communicating ahead to their, area leaders, principals, things like that, but things that may never make it to us. If we send out something that would just highlight to the teachers and staff the value that we find in hearing their input, specifically written by the board to them.
No, Nathan, I was thinking about that, but I didn't want to discuss it openly because I wanted to talk to Jack about it because he might have a clever way of reaching out to the staff. Do you want to comment, Jack?
In fact, tomorrow, Dr. Boyer and I are meeting with the building reps. I reached out to Dan Williams and said, can we sit with your folks and just listen, dialogue like we're doing here tonight, and they were very, very accommodating. So we have started that process. We have gone to a faculty meeting or two. JD buildings every day, representing administration. So everyone is welcome to come up and voice their needs, their opinions, their whatever. We can't accommodate everything everybody wants and all that type of thing, but as Barb said, we will listen.
You can only please some of the people some of the time. I believe it was Abraham Lincoln that said that.
We are reaching out.
Byron?
I think there should be a supervisor of grounds and custodians also separate from the...
What custodians? I don't mean to be facetious.
Yeah, we need to hire a new custodian, but please go on.
gonna have 4 openings, so.
What you're head on, sir. What we are going to do is when we have a few, 3 or 4 gentlemen and lady who is retiring, we are going to look at when we hire new people and right in the top of not just hiring somebody who can, we're going to look for the trades, as we said before, and somebody who can do this, and maybe somebody who can be a supervisor or whatever, that type of thing. So change is opportunity. I've always really felt that. So we're going to look at that whole department in moving ahead. Yeah.
Thoughts, questions? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Come on, let me see here. No, there is a motion.
Oh.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
Well, wait, April, do you have anything we sort of forgot?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm in agreement with what Jeremy was saying about transparency and moving forward in morality. Some things I have written down on my part as I had spoken about during the interview process. That we have just the truth, and that our children are taught just the truth, that we have a moral framework, and that they're given the best opportunities that can be provided to them equally. And that, I lost my train of thought, great. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak, I appreciate it. I'm so sorry I couldn't be here with all of you tonight, for sure.
Well, thanks for phoning in.
Thank you, April. Good night, everyone.
Great job. Impressive. Word to listen.